Hi guys, Mimi G here. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be working on my latest early spring pattern 9894. We're going to be doing view A, the top. Of course, all the suggested fabrics along with notions are always on the back of your pattern envelope. Here are the pattern pieces you'll need to cut and interface. Now, if you're new to sewing or you just need a refresher course, you can head over to sewitacademy.com where you can check out our free trial and learn the very basics. Then follow along with me here. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start with our front. All of your pieces, out besides your linings, of course, should be interfaced. So we're gonna go ahead and place these right sides facing, align your notch. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and stitch this using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, as you can see, I have pressed my seam open. We're gonna go ahead and pin our side front to our front. Then we'll do some top stitching. So with right sides facing, you wanna go ahead and pin. And since we're here, we'll go ahead and do the other side. Okay, and pretty straightforward. You're just gonna stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And again, on the other side, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, but you're gonna press your seam allowance towards the front. All right, so I have gone ahead and pressed my side front seam allowance towards the front. And we're gonna go ahead and top stitch 3/8 of an inch away from your seam, and then you're gonna top stitch on either side of the front seam, and then again on this side of your side front. Okay, as you can see, I have finished my top stitching. We're gonna go ahead and set this aside. We're gonna work on our cups. So when you picked your size, you either chose your A cup, B cup, C cup, D cup, or a double D cup. And so you should have your cup and then your side piece. So we're gonna go ahead and pin those together. You should have, just like you see on your pattern piece, 2 notches here, and then you have 2 notches here. You wanna pin those together. I'm going to pin at my first notch that I see, and then at the second notch. Okay, now we're going to stitch this together using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. You're going to do your other cup the same way. All right, once we have them sewn, I went ahead and trimmed off about half of that seam allowance, and we're gonna go ahead and press this seam allowance towards the double notch side. So you have one side that has a double notch, this side has no notches, so you wanna go ahead and press your seam towards the double notch, and you may wanna use a ham so that you can keep the shape of the bust as you're pressing, depending on the size of your cup. And this will just help you to keep the shape of it. All right, once you've pressed your seam allowance towards the double notch side, you're gonna go ahead and top stitch. Again, just like we did the top stitching on our other piece, you're gonna top stitch. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and grab our bra band. I have gone ahead and pressed under 5/8 of an inch. On one, give yourself a stitching line. It's always easier, you guys know this, so that you can turn it evenly. Once you do that, we're gonna go ahead and pin this to our bra cups. I'm gonna set one aside. You're gonna do the same thing for both bra cups. You're gonna align those notches. You have a notch on your bra, on the cup, and you have a notch on the band. The wrong side of your band on the right side of the cup, just the way you see me doing. Okay, now we're gonna head to the sewing machine and you're going to edge stitch the folded edge down. Okay, once you've stitched this down, we're gonna go ahead and just baste the tops together. You're gonna do your other bra band and bra cup the same. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and attach our bra cups. So you're gonna go ahead and grab one. You have 2 notches on the inside and then 2 notches on the side on your cup. So that's what you wanna make sure that you're matching up first. So I'm gonna match those double notches and pin. You wanna match up your top stitching to your top stitching, so that seam should be matching up. I'm gonna pin there, then we'll ease the rest of this in. Okay, so on the bodice, not the cup, we're gonna make a couple of snips. about 1/4 inch, and pin. And then you're going to do the same thing on this side. Could use one more. Okay, you're going to go ahead and pin your other cup the same way. Okay, you're going to want to go slow because we're going to be working around curves. Okay, once our cups are in place, we're going to go ahead and do some top stitching. We're going to top stitch because this is going to become the tunnel for your underwire. So I have pressed my seam allowance down, and we're going to be stitching 1/4 inch away from our seam around our cup through all thickness. Okay, you're going to top stitch your other cup the same way. Once your top stitching is done, if you are going to use an underwire, you would insert the underwire now, okay? Now, I don't like underwire. I avoid it at all costs. And to be quite honest, I don't necessarily need it. But if you do and you plan to do underwire, then now you would insert it in the little tunnel that we created. And then you're going to create a little tacking at the top so your underwire obviously doesn't slip out. So go ahead and do your underwire now if you plan to do so, then grab your back pieces. Okay, so we have our back, which we cut on the fold, and then we have our side back, and you should have some notches. So we're gonna go ahead and pin our notches, find the double notch to double notch, and pin. Okay, now you're going to head to the sewing machine, and with a straight stitch, you're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance on both sides, and then press your seams open. Okay, once you've attached your side backs to your back, go ahead and top stitch. So I pressed my seam allowances towards the middle, and then I top stitched. Now we're going to go ahead and sew our side seam together. So I'm going to place my back over my front, and we're going to pin and stitch the left side, my left. Okay, go to your sewing machine. You're just going to stitch this using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then press your seam open. All right, we're going to go ahead and work on our straps. So you should have 2. You're going to fold them lengthwise, right sides facing, and then pin if you need to. You're going to stitch using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. You do not stitch the short ends. You're only stitching the long end. Okay, once you've stitched it, I went ahead and trimmed off some of my seam allowance. Now we're going to turn it right side out. Okay, you're gonna go ahead and give it a good press, and then we're gonna pin it to our bodice. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and pin to our bodice. So you should have marked your little dots, okay, so you know where you're placing them. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin. Okay, and now on the other side, you should have also marked your little dots. So you wanna make sure that it's not gonna twist. You just want to check it really quick, make sure it's not twisted. After you tack them down, you could do that with a basting stitch and just double check that the straps are the length that you need, that you don't need to shorten them. I always have to shorten my straps, so you may want to try it on now before we continue. Okay, now you're gonna go ahead and construct your lining the same exact way that we did for our main bodice. The only difference is you don't need to do the top stitching if you don't want to on your lining. If you want more reinforcement and you want to add boning to this, then you would do it to the lining, and then you would make sure that you created the tunnels. Now, I am not going to be adding additional boning to this because I have my straps and it's going to sit wherever I need it to sit. But if you do want to add boning, that would be the place to do it. So go ahead, set this aside, grab your lining pieces, put it together just like we did our bodice. Then we'll attach our lining to the top. Okay, so now that my lining is done, we're going to go ahead and pin it to our bodice. You want to make sure that you are matching up your seam lines. Okay, now we're going to head to the sewing machine. We're going to stitch the entire top using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, I want you to trim your seam allowance till about half of this, and then we're going to understitch. Okay, so we want to make sure that our seam allowance is up towards our lining, and we're going to edge stitch. I'm going to start about 2 inches in, however, from the edge. You're going to stop, same as you did when we started, 2 inches before you get to the edge. All right, I went ahead and pressed my bodice. Now we're going to go ahead and fold this onto itself or turn it onto itself, and we're going to stitch the entire bottom. So you're going to pin, making sure again that you're matching up your seam lines. Okay, now you're just going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, closing out the entire bottom. All right, I've gone ahead and trimmed down half of my allowance, and now we're just going to use one of the side openings to turn this right side out. Okay, now go to your ironing table and give this a really good press. All right, guys, so I have pressed my bodice, and I also went ahead and serged the side seams, and I did, guess what it is, a stitching guide of 5/8 of an inch from the edge, and I did that on both sides, and then I gave it a good press. So really quickly, this zipper was really long because I didn't have one that fit this exact size. So hubby went ahead and shortened it for me. If you don't know how to shorten a zipper, I am gonna link to a video that he did in my description box so that you can watch him show you how easy it is to shorten a zipper, and then you can come back and use your new shortened zipper for your bodice. So the instructions have you press under the seam allowance and then placing your garment over the zipper, basically right in the middle. So that way when you bring the other side to stitch it, you basically want your fabric to kiss, right? And that will hide your zipper. And so if you're doing it that way, you're basically going to align your folded edge right along the middle of that zipper, and you're gonna pin. And you're gonna do that all the way up, and then you're going to just top stitch it in place, and then you're gonna do the same thing on the other side, bringing the other folded edge right up against your fabric, making them kiss. You're going to pin it, and then you're going to top stitch. But I have a really cool zipper, so I want my zipper to show. So instead, I'm bringing the folded edge of my fabric right up to the zipper teeth so that you can sort of be able to see how cool my zipper is. I want an exposed zipper. Now take into consideration that if you are doing this, you want to make sure to pin it and try it on, because this is going to give you a little more width in the body, right? So if you're using up the 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and you're making them kiss, perfect, no problem. If you're doing it like me and you want an exposed zipper, you've just added almost 3/8 of an inch to the circumference. It's not going to be a big deal, but you might want to try it on just to make sure. And if you want it to be a little more snug, you may want to fold over a tad bit more seam allowance to take up that 3/8 of an inch that you're getting from the zipper teeth. So I'm going to go ahead and start pinning mine so that my fabric is right up against my teeth. Okay, and then you're basically going to tuck the top inside of your fold, like that, right? So you don't see it's on the inside. And I'm gonna pin one more time. Okay, now I'm gonna go to my sewing machine and I'm just going to top stitch. Okay, now you're gonna go ahead and attach the other side of your zipper the same way. Once you're done installing your zipper, you are all done. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that sew along. Make sure and tag me on Instagram at MimiGStyle so I can see all of your amazing makes. Until next time, peace.